التي قبلها والتي بعدها. There are different narrations that the Prophet emphasized that the fasting that day, the day of Arafah, that he count before Allah, that would be a means of erasing the sins of 2 years, the current year and the following year. And generally speaking, fasting any day, even without having a specific virtue, that by itself is a great act of worship, as the Prophet emphasized that whoever fasted a day in the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, بَعَدَ اللَّهُ وَجْهَهُ عَنِ النَّارِ سَبْعِينَ خَرِيفًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will distance his face from hellfire with the 90 years, 70 years. And the expression the Prophet said, سَبْعِينَ خَرِيفًا. Kharifan, that's the fall season, which sometimes comes with the negativities in Arabic culture. So when they say beautiful years, they said spring. They use the spring, And when the hardship or difficult years, they said kharif, the fall season. So, but anyway, so fasting one day, that will distance you from hellfire with the 70 years. And even the 70 itself never meant to be by itself as number. And most time used in the Arabic literature and Arabic poetries and Arabic expressions to mean that something too big or too far. So when in the ayah, for example, Allah told the Prophet, if you ask Allah 70 times and you beg Allah forgiveness 7 times for them, Allah will never forgive them. It doesn't mean that if he asks for 71 that Allah would forgive them. So meaning that if you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala multiple times, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never forgive them. But that day, with no doubt, has a greater blessing. And think of it, that we could understood that the bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you do something voluntarily, Allah would forgive you the current year. But it's beyond imagination that Allah not only gonna forgive you the current year, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would forgive you coming year. Subhanallah, look at the great hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala given us. So by fasting one day in the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And sometimes, you wonder why there's such reward for volunteer actions. It might be not the same reward for farad, yes? The reward is your obligations. But how you gain the love of Allah? You're not going to gain the love of Allah just only by limiting your duties to your obligations. And you have to go beyond. In the hadith, ما تقرب إلي عبدي أحب مما افترضته عليه ولا يزال عبدي يتقرب إلي بالنوافل حتى أحبه. So there's nothing that burn in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than your obligation. So you have to start with it. However, in order to gain the love of Allah, you have to do the extra. When you do the extra voluntarily, Allah will give you more than what you expect. Think of that situation that happened in the past, where a poet comes to make his poetry, and the king, because he was happy and excited with the word of that person, he will give him plenty of money or give him a really huge gift. And the worker, al-katib, he's working there with the king. He might complain, said, you know what, this person, he just came for 5 minutes and he was rewarded with such amount, and I'm with you day and night, and I never received this. You know what's the simple answer? That he said, I dealt with that person out of my generosity, but I'm dealing with you out of my justice. You see, when Allah will deal with you according to His generosity, Allah has a greater example. But when Allah will deal with you according to His generosity, He will give you more than what you think. And it's better always asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to deal with you with His ihsan, with His fadl, not only with His justice, with His adl. So, Allahumma amilna bil fadli, bifadlika, la bi'adlika. Because if Allah judges us with according to His justice, it might not make it. We might not be safe. We never know. Because maybe our actions, it's not that to be in that level to be accepted or to reach the level to compensate some of the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He bestowed upon us. So it's very important that out of love of Allah, you do the volunteer actions. So it's one of the great days that you should commit to fast after Ramadan, after your obligations. It's the day of Arafah. And that's for the one who's not for Hajj. The one who is Hajj, there is no fasting for him. So the day of Arafah, there's no fasting for the person in Arafah. Why is that? Some scholars, they made very beautiful reason and wisdom behind it. Because the day of Arafah is the day of Hajj. And you want to maximize the benefit where you have a full energy. We know that when you're fasting single days, you might not have the same energy, you know. I know when you fast the whole Ramadan, the full month, after first few days, you make up your energy. But only one single day, it might actually make you a little bit dizzy or weak. So in the one in Hajj, you need that person to be in the full energy. Why is the full energy? What he's doing? What's the ibadah in the day of Arafah? Dua. Dua. So you have your energy just to spend your time in dua, to maximize the benefit of of that day, to be asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the forgiveness. Anyway, so your ibadah, inshallah, as the Prophet recommended, is to fast. Now the question. This year, Arafah is falling in Saturday. And there are some hadiths that refrain us of fasting Saturdays. As for example, the hadith of Rasul said, لا تصوموا السبت إلا فيما افترض عليكم. Do not fast Saturday except the days of obligation. Like in Ramadan, Qada Ramadan, Nether, something obligatory on you. Otherwise, do not fast it. In fact, that hadith mentions something very scary. You can say, and the Prophet said, even if you couldn't find something to break your fast with, you grab a leaf or a stick, and that you chew that one, so you make sure you break your fast. Okay, what can I do? This is a great day and one of the days of Allah, and there's a hadith that's telling us you should not fast. So what we should look at first, we'll look at the chain of narrations. We find the scholars debate about this. Imam Malik, he said this is fabricated hadith. Imam Hazm, he said this is kadhib. Ibn Taymiyyah rejected, this hadith. So there are many scholars that didn't accept the narration of this hadith. And for those that didn't accept the narration of hadith, and they said that hadith either fabricated or very weak or a lie, then out of the conflict. Because you know what? They didn't consider this hadith as something authentic, so they build rules based on that. Some other scholars said, no, this is acceptable narrations. From the traditional scholars, and even from the current scholars, some of the ulama of hadith, they said it's how it sound narration, so it's acceptable. However, they said this hadith, it's not prohibited, that means it's haram. They said it's makruh. It's lightly, it is undesirable to fast. It's not recommended to fast. So it's makruh. It's not forbidden. And they said it's makruh when you single out that day and you fasted Saturday because of Saturday. Like Imam Shafi'i, for example, they said if you fast a day before or a day after, then it's fine with no karaha. We'll find no يعني karaha, which permissible to fast that day of the Saturday. Or you fasted for a specific reason, not because of Saturday, like a day of virtue, or that's your habit, to fast, certain days, like the 3 days, of Alayal Bid, or other habit. And evidence for that, there are many evidence for this. When the Prophet were asked about what one of the best type of fasting, he said the fasting of Prophet Dawood. He used to fast one day and break another. So when he will fast one day and break another, what's going to happen? It's going to fall on Saturdays, one of them. If not this first week, the second week. Of course? Yeah, because 7 days, so it's odd number, it's going to happen, that's one of the days will be Saturday. The Prophet recommended to fast the 13, 14, 15. And it's going to happen, one of that is Saturday. In Sahih al-Bukhari, the Prophet asked his wife Juwayriyah when he found her fasting on Fridays. He asked her, "Are you fasted yesterday?" She said no. He told her, "Are you going to fast tomorrow?" She said no. Then Prophet recommended her to break her fast. And look at the hadith. What Prophet told her, "Are you going to fast tomorrow?" Which tomorrow is Saturday. So the Prophet is expecting if she's fasting Saturday, which one day before, that will be fine. So now, how you look at it, is to summarize it. Some scholars, they rejected the narration because of evidence in the chain of narration that some people, they are not acceptable. So from the beginning, they said that's not acceptable, so they never consider that it's actually prohibited. And other scholars, they accepted, but majority of them, they said it's not prohibited, it's just makruh. And makruh, for certain reasons, if you single out that Saturday because of Saturday, or otherwise would be fine if you fasted for a specific reason, or you fasted because of the virtue of that day, or because you fasted another day, before it. Now, if somebody would say to me, "I'm fasting tomorrow and I'm going to fast Saturday," completely fine. You want to fast only Saturday, that's completely fine with no issue. Why but fasting the coming Saturday? Why? Is that because of Saturday? No. I'm fasting it because of the day of Arafah. Then would be no issue with that. Even with consideration that hadith is acceptable narration. So there are two things that always we look at it. We look at al-thubut, al-wurud, wa the text itself, what it means. So we look at both sides in the hadith, from where it comes, the chain of narration, and the text itself, what that means. So again, I know it's this a fiqh issue and matters, but to see how the dynamic of scholars and how they look at it, they are not coming and making things from their own. They try just to understand the Sunnah of the Prophet and to preserve it for us. And that's one of the examples of their differences. Sometimes they're different in the interpretation of the narrations, and sometimes they're different of the acceptance of the narration itself. And there's one book that's really beautiful that may help you to understand that dynamic and the reason of differences. Very simple book. It's not going to take an hour from you to finish it. Called رفع الملام عن الأئمة الأعلام. Beautiful book. Was translated in English. رفع الملام, lifting the blame on the great scholars. That's written by Imam Ibn Taymiyyah. Very beautiful book, direct to the point. I advise you to read it, and you will appreciate the effort of the scholars. May Allah guide us all. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the best of understanding. اللهم علمنا وجهلنا وذكرنا ما نسينا وفقنا في ديننا واجعلنا من عبادك الصالحين. آمين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.